Hey there, this is Matt with State of Flex here with a review of the Mad Max series thus far. With Furiosa coming out later this week, I thought it would be fun to take a look back at the Mad Max franchise, and rather than do them all individual reviews, to do sort of like a cluster review, because I don't have a ton to say, but this is a franchise I generally very much like. So I'm going to start with giving you sort of like just a couple sentence review of each of the individual films, and then my ranking at the end, so stay tuned for that. So starting up, let's talk about the original Mad Max. This is a film that I was excited to see because I'd heard a lot of things about Mad Max, and so when I was first getting into science fiction and stuff like that in the VHS days, I excitedly rented this film, and I was really kind of unimpressed. I thought that the first hour of the movie just really drags. Like, nothing's particularly bad, it's just like so disengaging. And then the last like 20 minutes are exceptional, like really, really good, but it is a long-ass slog to get there. The character of Max, and pretty much all of the characters across the board, are not particularly interesting. The film didn't really have any strong visual flair, and were it not for that really strong conclusion, which feels like a prologue to the next film, the movie just seemed uninspired and like, what are we doing here? Why are we watching this? And that's kind of how I've always felt about it. I do think some of the like restorations of the film in recent years have made it a little better looking and more visually appealing than the poor transfer VHS that I saw way back in the day. But even still, like, making it a little prettier doesn't fix the like blandness of this post-apocalyptic world. It does seem naturalistic, I will say that, but it's just kind of meh. And that's where I stand on Mad Max. I think it's 2.5-star movie. It's okay. You're not in for a bad time, but you're in for a great conclusion if you make it all the way through to there. And Mel Gibson is quite inviting to watch. Like, he's an engaging actor, even if he's not given a lot to work with. Moving on to The Road Warrior. This is one of my favorite films, and when people always bring up the question of, like, name a sequel that's better than the original, this one far outpaces that original film. It is, I think, just an extraordinary movie with high-octane action, a very interesting plot that's incredibly, like, spare. There's not a lot going on that you can't just describe in a paragraph, but what happens, how it unfolds, how the characters interact, how Max rises to kind of be the leader of this group of people in this barren wasteland that is much more visually interesting while also being pretty sparse in terms of its visuals, is all the more complex than it had been in the previous one. Everything works better. Mel Gibson is far more engaging, far more dynamic in this film, and it harkens back to the old, like, Kurosawa movies where you have like Yojimbo, or the Western counterpart of The Man with No Name, where this guy, Max, comes into this situation, rises up to be the leader of it. It is a tale of old, and it's interesting because my understanding is that George Miller, the director of these 4 films, hadn't seen either Yojimbo or the Man with No Name trilogy prior to this. So it was something that is like by happenstance. It's one of those tales as old as time. It's just organically inherent in the medium of like having those who don't have a voice and are given one through the strength of a leader, and it's captured so excellently in The Road Warrior, which is one of my favorite films of the 80s. Back when I was growing up, all of my friends were like, if you liked Road Warrior, you're gonna love Thunderdome. And I think at the time that was recency bias. I do think Thunderdome, while a good film, is far inferior. It is much superior to the first Mad Max, but just a far cry from the quality of the second film, The Road Warrior. And I think the problem comes in twofold. It suffers a little bit from Return of the Jedi-itis, in the sense that you have a film divided into two parts. The first part is like the would-be Jabba the Hutt story, or everything that's happening at Thunderdome and this weird pigsty. And then everything that happens afterwards, where they swap out Ewoks for young children, and Max needs to be the leader to rise up with them. And both of them are independently good stories. They don't merge particularly well, just as Return of the Jedi, like the merging of those two elements doesn't necessarily gel as well as it could. Nothing's bad, it just doesn't fall into a cohesive unit like the previous film did. That said, the stuff with Thunderdome is visually engaging. Tina Turner is operating at like the highest of octane that you possibly can in that performance. The action's cool, if albeit a little bit, what's the word I want to use? Obnoxious? And then the second half gets a little too kid-friendly for my taste, for this like franchise that is built around Max avenging his family who was brutally killed in front of him. It's weird that now we're playing with children. But that was how it went in these movies of the era. That said, it's a good movie. I give it 3 stars. Then there was a long hiatus, and I remember hearing about it, a 4th movie, even in like 1995, 1996. That was actually what got me interested in watching the original Mad Max, was hearing about, oh, there's going to be a 4th one coming out, I should watch this franchise. And it was a long wait before I finally got there. But we did in 2015 with a little bit of a recast, unnecessary one because Mel Gibson decided to tank his entire career, and instead we get replaced with Tom Hardy, who brings his mean grimace, face-covered energy to the franchise. However, Max became very apparently unimportant in the story. It seemed to me that they used Max as the framework to pass the torch onto a much more interesting character in Furiosa. Charlize Theron owns this film, and Tom Hardy is there to support her. And the whole women's storyline of breaking free from this evil, wretched guy, the best villain of the 4 films. This is the most visually interesting film of the franchise, and one of the best looking films, full stop, of the 21st century. I think that is kind of inarguable. And it works both in the original color, where you have the orange, the sepia tone and teal, orange and teal look, but it also works insanely well in the black and chrome edition, which gives it its own certain visual flair and energy. It is phenomenal. It is a very, very good movie that I do think gets a touch of overpraise. I would have liked it to be a little shorter, weirdly enough, even though it's packed to the brim with visually engaging stuff. It gets to be like so much that you just need to pull back a little bit. That said, if that's my only complaint, was that I was too visually dazzled, it's a pretty good complaint to have. So this is a movie that I think is exceptional, and I give 3.5 stars. It was one of my favorite films of 2015, and an Oscar nominee for Best Picture. But where do I rank them? I think you can kind of somewhat figure it out. So let's go from the ground up. In the 4th place spot, we have the 2.5 star Mad Max. An okay introduction into who Max is if you really need that framework established for you. though I don't know that it's necessary. What you can do is watch the final 20 minutes of this film and use that as prologue to whichever Max movie you wish to see. Then, in the third place spot, the 3-star Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. A good movie in parts, but in its totality doesn't hold as strong as it probably should, considering both halves of the film are quite good. They just don't cohese into a strong unit. In the number 2 spot is most people's favorite. That would be Mad Max Fury Road. A great movie. Genuinely great. Beautifully shot. Like stunning action. Passing of the torch to a character that looks like she can sustain a new franchise. And I guess we're going to see how true that is later this week. I hope to have a review for you sometime next week or the week after. Busy schedules, yo. And then in my number 1 place is one of my favorite films of the 1980s. I love The Road Warrior. I think that is his strongest movie, and it works all the way through as a movie. And I like the character of Max in it. Again, you don't need to know what happened prior to Max, just as you didn't need to know it for Fury Road. You get the idea. You understand everything that he is about through just little glimpses and little bits of pieces of storytelling. It works in the framework that Yojimbo and The Man with No Name before him did. And this is one of my favorite films of this archetype. The Road Warrior gets 4 stars from me. That's my ranking of the Mad Max saga. We'll see where Furiosa falls into this. I think that the trailers look incredible. The things I'm hearing about the movie are incredible, yet the internet doesn't seem to be in love with it. The idea of this movie, and I can only imagine why. I'll let that simmer for you, but let me know what you thought of this film in the comments section down below, and let me know how excited you are for Furiosa. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Peace.